And oh, all right, that works. Thank you. All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Judge Law, and we are going to begin with our expedited accusation calendar with the State Court of Fulton County. This is a list of cases in which individuals were recently arrested and charged with one or more misdemeanor offenses. Upon being booked at the Fulton County Jail, the cases were then formally accused by the prosecutor, who is the Solicitor General of Fulton County. When I call your name, I will advise you of what your new case number is, what are the charges that have been brought against you, to appoint counsel if one is required, and also to set a bond. Some of you may also possibly receive a new court date. Now, with regards to bond, if some of you may qualify for what we call a signature bond. That's a type of bond that you don't have to pay at the present time, but you would have to comply with certain conditions, such as no contact, no drinking alcohol, so forth and so on. If you violate the conditions of a signature bond, you could be arrested. The bond will be revoked and amended to a surety bond or a cash bond. A surety or cash bond, if you do receive such a bond, that is one in which you would have to pay for the bond out of your own pocket, and or either through a bonding company. Conditions may also attach to such a bond. Let me see, Miss, who is my case? Mr. Jordan, what's our next court date, please?
February the 8th.
Okay, thank you. For those of you who receive a surety bond or a cash bond, your next court date is going to be February 8th at 9 a.m. That is also going to be a virtual proceeding. And for those who plan to attend, please make sure that you get a Zoom link from the clerk's office. All right, courtroom 2, who do we begin with?
Position number 7, Dixon.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Jordan, we have one add-on, correct?
Yes, Judge. So position 4 should have only had one charge on it, criminal trespass and damage to property. So I split the cases up. So the add-on was for the second case for Mr. Cade.
I see, okay. So the position 4 should only have the theft by receiving, and then the add-on is for the criminal trespass, or is it the other way around?
It's the other way around. So position 4 should only have criminal trespass and damage to property.
Okay.
So the add-on, the theft by receiving stolen property charge was added to the add-on case.
All right, understood. Thank you. All right, moving on to position 7, we have Latoya Vernetta Dixon. Ms. Dixon's case number is 24 CR 523B, in which she is accused of criminal trespass. Ms. Dixon, you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say in open court, your statements can and will be used against you. You have a right to an attorney, and representing you this afternoon will be Mr. Bray.
No, Tom White.
White, okay, thank you. And Mr. Howard, any priors, please?
19 total. She's out on pretrial for battery DV. 2023 failure to appear. 2016 trespass, theft by taking, giving false name. That's it.
What is the pretrial bond amount?
I don't know. Let me look it up.
Okay. Mr. Walker?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon. 1 second. So, law enforcement was dispatched to the East Point package store located at 1805 Washington Road. This defendant had previously been criminally trespassed from this location prior, and she was back there again, so authorities were called. She was picked up at the location, and I did check her criminal history in addition to what pretrial listed. I'm seeing that she took a plea back in November for a criminal trespass at this same location. That was 23 CR 006727F. The state is asking for a $1,000 surety. Again, a stay away, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol while out on bond.
All right. So it's the same location, same store?
That's what my notes reflect, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. White?
Judge, we're asking Ms. Dixon be allowed to sign her own bond. This is simply a criminal trespass and an allegation at this point. I understand state's point is that she was arrested here back in November. Based on the lack of severity, it's not like she did any damage. She was just there. We'd ask that she'd be allowed to sign her own bond.
All right. Bond is set at 500 surety. It is next court date is February 8th, and she's to stay away from the package store from East Point, Georgia. Thank you. Next case, please. And ladies and gentlemen in the courtroom, I did forget to omit. Now, when we address your cases, please remember that you have a right to remain silent. Anything you choose to say about the facts of your case during this recorded and live stream proceeding, your statements can and will be used against you in the treatment of your case. Mr. Jordan, I don't know whether the record is on. Could you please go ahead? And what position is this courtroom to?
Position number 10,
Thank you.
Ms. Lewis.
This is State versus Kylie Lewis, accused of driving without a valid license, speeding, no automobile insurance, and giving false name to an officer. The accusation is 24 CR 516J, stemming from a traffic incident of January 26, 2024. Ms. Lewis, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Mr. White. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
I got 6 total. 2023 fugitive from justice out of Coweta County. Open possession of marijuana, failed to identify, giving false fictitious name. This was out of Texas. And another charge out of Louisiana. 2020 shoplifting conviction, 2023 obstruction, and a vice charge conviction. This was level 3.
Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor. This defendant was stopped for doing 91 in a 70-mile-per-hour zone, and she was charged with driving without a valid license. On that charge, the state is asking for $1,000 surety. To the no insurance, we are asking for a $500 surety. To the speeding, we are asking for a $500 surety. And for the false name that she provided of Kalia Johnson, we are asking for a $1,000 surety. We are asking that she not drive because she does not have a valid license according to our system. No weapons, drugs, or alcohol while out on bond.
All right, Mr. White?
Your Honor, we ask that she be allowed to sign her own bond. These are basically traffic offenses. She was driving her mother's car, so the no insurance.
I'm sorry, sir, you broke up. She's driving what?
It was her mother's car that she
Oh,
was
I
driving.
see. Mhm.
So, we understand that she needs to get a license and she will not be driving until she actually gets one. But we'd ask that she be allowed to sign her own bond, light history, traffic offenses, Judge.
All right.
She is a student also. She's in school to become an esthetician, so
Oh, okay.
with no income.
On the driving without a valid license, that's a $500 surety. The remaining charges are $1,000 each, and that's a signature bond through pretrial services. Her total bond is $3,500, and that's a split bond. Next court date is February 8th. She needs to report to pretrial once a month and no driving unless she has a valid driver's license, operates a vehicle which has adequate insurance, and properly registered.
Judge,
Yep.
requiring her to report to pretrial when she's not out on a pretrial bond, I mean, because she still has.
No, she's got a
It's a
split bond.
It is, you're right, but unless she makes that bond,
Yeah. So when she makes the bond, then she will be able to report once a month. What's the problem, Mr. White?
if it takes her some time to make the bond, she
Oh, she'll
won't.
make it. Her mom is here, right? She's got her mom's car?
Judge, we're not making any assumptions that her mom's going to bond her out. Her mother lives in another state. That's,
Student here, you said?
I'm sorry?
She's a student here?
She is a student, yes.
Okay. She'll make bond. I have
Oh,
hope.
because you're a student, you automatically make bond?
No, Mr. White, I have hope.
Wonderful.
But she's got multi-state, she's got a multi-state criminal record history. And that's why there's a $500 surety.
All right.
All right? Okay, let's move on.
Number 11, Richardson.
Marsha Richardson is charged with battery, family violence, willful obstruction of an officer, and cruelty in the first degree from January 26, 2024. Marsha Richardson's case number is 24CR 517G. Ms. Richardson, you have been advised of your right to remain silent. Your attorney is Mr. White. Mr. Howard, excuse me. Do you have-
5 total, 2019, Cobb County disorderly conduct, simple assault, battery, obstruction, 2019 battery, no-low. That's all.
All right, thank you. Mr. Walker?
Yes, looks like law enforcement was dispatched to 4851 Sultana Way, where they met with the victim, Mr. DeQuinton Williams. I believe Mr. Williams is on the line. He advised that he and the defendant are in a relationship and they have a 1-year-old child together. Apparently, the defendant became upset with him because his other child's mother came to the home to pick up their child together. The defendant did become irate. It looks like she bit and scratched him. Law enforcement did observe visible bruising on his arms. The state is asking for $1,000 surety to the one-count battery family violence, to the obstruction, a $500 surety to the cruelty to children. Whereas for $1,000 surety, we are asking for a stay away from the incident location, no contact with the victim, and also no contact with the minor victim, RW. No weapons, drugs, or alcohol while out on bond. And of course, we would sound for the victim, Mr. DeQuinton Williams.
All right, Mr. DeQuinton Williams, you are on Zoom. Did you want to address the court? Then you would need to unmute, please. Mr. Williams, did you want to add anything?
Yes, Your Honor.
right, please raise your
Marsha
right
came
hand.
upstairs.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Does Marsha Richardson live with you?
We live together. Yes, ma'am.
All right. And this minor RW, is that the child you share with Miss Richardson?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. What would you like to tell me?
I would like that the victim, I would like that Marsha would be allowed to return to the residence because we do share a child together. And obviously, she needs her mother. I think that was an isolated incident in this situation, and that she should be able to, get out and come back to the residence. I don't feel that this is an incident that will, be continuous or anything like that.
Well, your other child's mother is going to visit, isn't she?
Yeah, that wasn't quite the story of what happened. That it wasn't because of the child's mother; it was because of another situation that happened, and some alcohol was involved. So if there were some stipulations, I like that she would stay away from alcohol. While out on bond.
All right, Mr. White.
Your Honor, this is actually my client, Mr. Bray.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Bray. Okay, let me
Oh,
check
you're
this
fine,
out.
Judge. Yes, Your Honor, Miss Richardson, she has lived in the Atlanta area for the last 20 years. Her and Mr. Williams, I believe it is. I apologize if that's not your last name, sir. They actually own that residence that the incident took place at. They have the child in this case, as you've heard, Your Honor, is 1 year old. Mr. Williamson, DeQuinton, he works at AT&T. So Miss Richardson is the primary caretaker of that 1 year old child. She's actually on maternity leave right now for that purpose, Your Honor. So Judge, we would ask that the court set a signature bond so that she can get out, remain with her child. We are fine with any conditions for no drugs or alcohol or any weapons while on a pretrial bond, but we are asking the court to set a bond and allow her to return back home and care for that minor child.
Okay, thank you. On the battery family violence, that's going to be a $2,000 signature bond. The remaining two charges are $1,000 each. It's a total of a $4,000 signature bond for pretrial services. Ms. Richardson, you can sign up for your bond today, but it is a high amount. It's $4,000. And you would have to comply with the following conditions in order to maintain the signature bond. First of all, is no violent contact with DeQuinton Williams. In other words, you cannot have any physical or verbal altercation with DeQuinton Williams Otherwise, you risk the chance of being arrested again and losing your signature bond. You may return to the home that you share with Mr. Williams, and while you are out on a signature bond, you will enroll and complete a domestic violence intervention program that must be enrolled within 30 days of being released. You are also to undertake an alcohol and drug evaluation and submit yourself to any treatment that's required, and that must also be undertaken within 30 days of being released. So by your second visit to pretrial, you must show that you have enrolled in the domestic violence classes and that you have an appointment date for an alcohol and drug evaluation. You're not to consume any alcohol. You may be subject to random screens, no illegal drugs, and you're not allowed to possess any weapons or firearms. So if there are any firearms that are presently at the location of 4851 Sultana Way, then either the guns go or you go. There cannot be any firearms in your home, anywhere near you, or in a vehicle or on your person. Yes, Mr. Bray?
Yes, Your Honor. Given that Ms. Richardson is a full-time caregiver for that child, plans to go back to work at Floor and Decor where she was working, would the court consider imposing the condition that she complete the anger awareness class through pretrial services? As Mr. Williams said, he believes this is an isolated incident. She is 37 years old. And given that these are just allegations at this point, I would ask for that modification from the court. Though we appreciate the signature bond.
I would definitely agree with the assessment, except that I've heard her criminal record history. It may be an isolated incident where Mr. Williams is concerned, but she's got a history of being arrested for a similar offense. So presently, she will be required to complete the domestic violence. It's once a week classes, and it's just a question of working it into your calendar. Thank you.
Yes, Judge.
Submission number 1.
This is State versus Andre Venegas Medrano. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Charged with criminal trespass in case 24 CR 510E. This stems from an incident of December 13th, 2023. Mr. Medrano, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney will be Mr. Bray. Any prize, Mr. Howard?
18 total. Last arrest was 9 days ago out of Hall County, possession of a firearm during the commission. That appears to be open. On probation in Gwinnett, possession of meth, possession of a Schedule 1 or 2 controlled substance with intent. They gave him 20 years for that. That's all.
Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor. Law
Walker?
enforcement was dispatched to 620 Cypress Point in Johns Creek, where they met with the victim, Miss Jenny Valde. She advised the defendant slashed the tires of her car. The state is asking for a $500 surety bond, a no contact with Miss Valde, a stay away from the incident location, no weapon, drugs, or alcohol while out on bond.
All right, thank you. And that location again, please? I just heard Cypress Point and Johns Creek.
620 Cypress Point.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bray?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Bangus, he has no problem with the no further contact and the stay away. He has lived in the Atlanta area for the last 20 years. He's got a wife and a 4-year-old child in the Atlanta area that he cares for. He's the sole breadwinner for the residents. He works at Legend Landscaping. He's been there for the last 4 years. He's actually a supervisor and believes that he should still have that job should the court give him a bond that he's able to post. So, Your Honor, we are asking the court to set a signature bond given that he is in custody and that he is the sole provider for his family. And that's all we've got for the court.
All right. When was he booked into Fulton County? January 26th?
Your Honor, that's what I've got on the booking sheet. He did come from Hall County, and he was there for about a week before being brought over to Fulton.
Understood. Thank you.
Your Honor, I know defense has alleged that he's a sole provider for his family and his child, but the warrant says that he lives with the victim, and I don't believe the victim is his wife. So,
Well, I'm not here to gauge that, but I'm granting the state's request for a surety bond. It is a $500 surety bond to stay away from 620 Cypress Point in Johns Creek, Georgia, and to stay 200 yards away from Jenny, Jeny Valdez. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, and definitely no weapons and no firearms. Next court date is February 8th. Thank you.
Position 3, Butler.
State versus Willie Butler Mr. Butler is accused of battery, family violence from January 13th, 2024. The accusation number is 24 CR 511F. Mr. Butler, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. White. Any priors, Mr. Howell?
37. 2018 DUI. I didn't see any violent conviction.
Okay. Is that the only DUI?
Oh, I don't know. It was the last arrest.
Any felony convictions?
I didn't see. I didn't look for any felony conviction. I was just looking for the violence.
All right. Mr. Walker?
yes, Your Honor, in this case, law enforcement was dispatched to 3540 North Camp Creek Parkway, where they met with the victim, Ms. Precious Boston. She advised that her and the defendant lived together at that location. They were engaged in some type of domestic disagreement that turned physical at the point that the defendant punched the victim in her face. The officer did observe swelling to her left jawbone. The state is asking for a $1,500 surety bond. Stay away from the incident location, no contact with the victim, no weapon, drugs, or alcohol while out on bond. And I do believe Ms. Boston is on the line.
All right. Ms. Boston, if you would like to address the court, you would please unmute and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, I do.
And what would you like to tell the court?
I just would like the court to just dismiss it or whatever. I just think me and Willie Butler, we was just going through something, and I just think that we should have counseling or whatever. He's not a bad person, either am I. I just think that night it was just a chaos and a misunderstanding, and I just do want the court to grant him, just to drop everything.
Are you still residing at 3540 North Camp Creek Parkway?
No, he had threw me out.
Boy, that's a pretty big misunderstanding.
But I did stay there, and we was together for 3 years, and I did stay there. So
All right.
like I said, I would like us to have
Raise your device and put it right in front of your face, please. Raise your device, bring it all the way up. And let me see your left jawbone.
Oh, it's nothing.
All right. Well, I guess that's a matter of opinion. Thank you. Mr. White?
First of all, Mr. Butler has a very different set of facts as the state raised. He says that basically because he was separating his relationship with the alleged victim, she made the accusation out of whole cloth. He is employed. He's been employed with the same Columbia Residential for 3 years now. He's a multi-site manager. And no violence. He's 37 years old and 49 years old and has no violence in his past, as you heard from pretrial. Last arrest was 6 years ago. We'd ask that he be allowed to sign his own bond.
All right. Well, bond's going to be set at $2,000. It is a surety bond. No further contact with Miss Boston. He may return to 3540 North Camp Creek Parkway in apartment J9 as long as Miss Boston doesn't reside that location. So his first visit back to the apartment should be with a police officer just to make sure that Miss Boston doesn't reside there, because he has to stay 200 yards away from her, do not communicate with her in any way, form, or manner.
I already told you she doesn't reside there.
Well,
under oath.
Mr. White, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
And I said he can go back there. He can return to the location as long as she doesn't reside there. But I always require a first-time visit with an officer to verify that.
Oh, okay. That's the first I've heard of it.
Okay.
And to be clear, when we talked to her, said she resided there for 3 years and all her belongings are still at the residence.
No, I do not disbelieve her. This is just verifying with an officer that she's not there. This would be for her protection. But in either way, he's to stay 200 yards away from her, not communicate with her in any way, form, or manner. He's also not to consume any illegal drugs, no alcohol, and not possess any firearms or weapons. Thank you. Next court date is February 8th.
Position 4, and I guess either add-on 1.
Yes.
Judge, position 2, you said a $2,000 surety.
Yes, $2,000 surety.
Is it 1,000 on each charge?
For Mr.
I mean, position 3, correct?
Yeah, this was position 3 with Miss Boston. Is that the one you're asking me about?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was writing that on the wrong case. I'm good, man.
You good?
I wrote it on the wrong case. I wrote it
Okay,
on
it was
case.
2,000 on that one count.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we have position number 4, and that is Mr. O'Shea Tylen Cade, C-A-D-E. Position number 4 is 24 CR 509A, in which Mr. Cade is accused of criminal trespass and causing damage to property from November 16, 2022. And then he's got an additional case, which is on our add-on calendar, and that's 24 CR 0005248. And in that case, Mr. Cade is accused of theft by receiving stolen property, a misdemeanor, from January 26, 2024. Mr. Cade, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Mr. White.
He got 4 adult arrests. 2022 suspended license out of the cab. 2014 possession of marijuana not prosecuted. And a decline theft by receiving criminal use of article with alter ID from 2013.
All right, thank you. Mr. Walker?
Yes, Your Honor. For the criminal trespass or the criminal damage, law enforcement was dispatched at 8350 Roswell Road. It appears that the victim's name is Ayanna Harris. It was reported to an officer that her mother observed the defendant kicking out the headlights to her vehicle. The state is asking for a $1,000 surety bond, no contact with the victim, Ayanna Harris, and to stay away from that instant location. No weapons, drugs, or alcohol while out on bond.
And what about the theft by receiving, the add-on?
Yes, that's a second case of theft by receiving. It's a stolen handgun. I believe it was search incident to arrest on a separate matter. Wait, check that 1 second.
Has the DA's office declined that charge?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay.
But it was search incident and arrest in a separate matter. 2 handguns was found on the defendant's person, and one of the handguns were reported stolen out of city of Atlanta. The state is asking for a $15,000 surety bond, no weapons, and if he has any additional weapons, for them to be forfeited. No alcohol or drugs while on bond, of course.
Mr. White?
Judge, we'll address the theft by receiving first. I'm sorry, the criminal trespass first. He's alleged to have damaged headlights on an ex car. He has no violence in his past. This is only 3rd arrest. I heard a suspended license and a marijuana charge, no convictions. And we're asking that he be allowed to sign his own bond. On the theft by receiving charge, the firearm question was a gift. He had no idea that it was stolen. Maybe he should have, but that's for a trial to decide. But we'd ask that he be allowed to sign his own bond. Obviously, any weapons that that weapon he can't get back. And he is willing to give up the other weapon as well in exchange for signature bond. He has no income and no ability to make a bond. And considering his lack of history, we think that he should be allowed to sign his own bond.
All right, thank you. On the criminal trespass and causing damage to property, that's going to be a 2,500 signature bond through pretrial services. And he's going to report to pretrial once a month and to have no contact with Ayana. What was it? Harris, okay. And definitely to stay 200 yards away from 8350 Roswell Road in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm not sure if he resides there.
That's not,
No, I
Judge.
think I've got a Jasmine Parkway address for him.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's good. The second case, the add-on on the theft by receiving stolen property, that's going to be a $4,500 surety bond. And his next court date on the second case is going to be February 8th. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons, and no firearms. Any firearms that he owns or possesses must be surrendered to the authorities for destruction. And his next court
I'm
date
sorry.
is February 8th. Yes, Mr.
I'm
White?
sorry to say any firearms he owns?
Any firearms he owns, yes.
Any legally owned firearm he has to submit for destruction.
Yes.
I don't believe that can be imposed. I mean,
It's up to him. But if he's found in possession of a firearm, even though he legally owns it, while this case is pending, then
right, he can transfer
yeah.
the firearms. Obviously, we can.
I used to say he can give them to someone, but what ended up was we had cases where the guns were then being given to individuals who had no rights to own the gun. So now I'm just sending off to destruction. And then if they still want to own a gun after the case is resolved and they are legally qualified to own a gun, then they can go and buy a new one. It's just a toy. Anything else, Mr. White?
No, Judge.
All right, good.
How much was that?
4,500 surety.
Position 8, Mr. Evans.
We have Brandon Evans, case number 24 CR 514J, accused of fleeing or attempting to elude a police officer through driving. And this is from a May 14th, 2023 incident. Mr. Evans, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Mr. White. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
20 total, 2022 battery. Got an open case in Superior Court, 23 SC 189503. What else we got? He's out on pretrial for battery DV and battery against female who is pregnant. 2018 failure to appear. 2017 criminal street gang activity. He got 2 open felony cases on a fugitive warrant.
Thank you. Mr. Walker?
Yes, Sharon. It looks like the defendant was stopped by law enforcement on May 14th of last year due to a traffic stop. When the officer went out of his car to make contact, the defendant fled. He was not apprehended until yesterday. The state is asking for a $1,500 surety, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol while on bond.
All right. And is that fugitive hold still pending, Mr. Howard?
Let me check.
Judge, he has several holds.
Okay, I was just wondering which, okay, y'all want to tell me which hold it is then? Because I know there's a fugitive hold. I just
But-
didn't list down all the holds.
He has several holds without bond.
Okay.
Hold on, let me look.
Based on,
Bond is going to be $3,000 signature bond through the jail to whichever hold comes and picks him up first. So it's a signature bond through the jail through whichever hold. He cannot be released on his own reconnaissance. Next case.
Number 15, Thompson.
Thank you. This is State versus Iquavius Deontay Thompson, charged with 2 counts of theft by receiving stolen property from October 16, 2023. Mr. Thompson, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Mr. White. Oh, Mr. Bray, excuse me. And any priors, Mr. Howard?
Ninth arrest. Last arrest was on the 10th of this month, Henry County. ID fraud and obstruction. 2018 probation, 2015 failure to appear. Terrorist threats, criminal damage to property, simple battery DV. He got first offender for those. That's all.
When was this?
2015.
2015, okay. Mr. Walker?
Yes, Your Honor. The defendant was arrested on these charges due to him pawning, I believe, an amplifier and an electric guitar that was owned by Timothy Olyer, Olyer, at the L Pawn Shop located at 1708 Howe Mill Road. Both of those items were reported stolen by the rightful owner. The state is asking for a $1,000 surety on each count. No contact with the victim, a stay away from that pawn shop, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol while on bond.
Mr. Bray?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Thompson is 29 years old. He was born and raised here in Atlanta. He's got family here. He can go back and live with his mom and grandmother at 2150 Southwood, I believe, Drive here in Atlanta, Your Honor. As far as the facts of this case, there's no questions that Mr. Thompson pawned the items, but there's no evidence that he actually was involved in the taking of the items. Of course, that is how it's charged as well. The charges reflect that. But given that there's no evidence that he stole the items, very little given about the circumstances in which he came in possession of the items, we would ask the court to set a signature bond. Mr. Thompson has no means to post a monetary bond, and we'd ask for that bond so he can go back and reside with his family.
Does he have an open felony case for theft by receiving stolen property? I have an arrest from April of 2021. Is that the open SC case? Mr. Howard?
No. He don't have an open case. He had his open case came out of Henry County, the ID fraud obstruction.
All right.
Double check in as well, Your Honor.
I've got a arrest from, he was booked into Fulton County on April 1st, 2021.
Correct.
And that was not for felony theft by receiving stolen property?
It has it on there, but it's dismissed.
Okay.
Yeah, you look in the cases tab, it'll show you. It was there.
Yeah. Okay.
DWAP.
On each count, the bond is going to be $2,500. That's going to be a $5,000 signature bond through pretrial services, level 2. Mr. Thompson, you'll be reporting to pretrial services twice a month. You're not to consume any illegal drugs, alcohol, or weapons. And you are not to, you're to stay away from Tim Ollier and the pawn shop in question. If you get arrested again, if you fail to report to pretrial, or if you do not show up in court, your signature bond will be revoked and converted to a cash bond or a surety bond. Thank you.
Number 17, Wilson.
Alexander Wilson is accused of battery, family violence from January 26, 2024, case number 24CR 522F. Mr. Wilson, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. Bray. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
15 total, 2017 probation, not a Gwinnett. 2016 probation. 2015 to 16 failure to appear. I didn't see any violent history.
All right. Just probation violations and failures to appear. Okay. All right. Mr. Walker?
Yes, Your Honor. In this case, law enforcement was dispatched to 2805 Green Trial Drive. I have to double check that because my handwriting's a little messy. But they spoke with the victim, Najee Sears. She advised that her and the defendant have 2 children together, and they lived together at their location. They were having a disagreement when things became heated. He grabbed her by the head and pulled her braids. The officer did observe bruising to the victim. The state is asking for a $1,500 surety, a stay away from that incident location, no contact with the victim, and no weapons, drugs, or alcohol while out on bond.
All right, thank you. Ms. Nashi, you are on the Zoom. If you'd like to say anything, you can unmute and start your video. Otherwise, you have a right to remain silent and we will just move on. All right, Mr. Bray? Oh, do you want to say
No,
something?
I'm sorry.
Did you want to
The
say
only
something?
yes, I did.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
And what would you like to say?
I was gonna say that we do have 3 children together, and I know I spoke with I think Miss Gloria. She called me earlier to let me know about the Zoom call, and I did mention to her about the kids as well. As far as what we needed to do for the kids, as far as like involvement, like with the kids. It's like I don't want to keep him from the kids, but I have full custody of the kids. They were not legitimized or anything. I just don't want him to like try to be revengeful or anything, or try to like pick the kids up or take the kids away from me or take them out of the state or anything without me knowing. She did say that she was going to email me a the bond letter, and it stated that he's not allowed as my address anymore, but when he gets out of jail that a cop will bring him to be able to get his belongings that's here. So she did say that she would put something in that letter stating that I guess it has to be a third party or something when involving the kids. I just don't want him to just take the kids without me knowing, or take them out of state, or I just don't want him to do anything like that. That's just what's involving the children.
And how many children are there?
We have 3 children.
Okay, thank you. You may mute your screen. Mr. Bray, anything to add?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Wilson is 36 years old, has substantial ties to the community. He's lived in Atlanta since he was 2 months old. He does have an alternate address that he can go to. He can live with his sister in Gwinnett. He was unable to give me the exact address, but that's understandable. I couldn't give you my sister's exact address, Your Honor. So, Your Honor, he does have a place to reside. He can stay away from the location. I would ask that any visitation with the kids be done through, a third party, and that he'd be able to, go back to the house to obtain any of his belongings that may still reside there with a one-time police escort, Your Honor. He tells me that he did go to college, so this is someone who's got a college education. He does a lot of volunteer work with a nonprofit in the community. They recently did a back to school drive, Your Honor. And as the court heard, he's got nothing violent in his history. So I understand, the victim's concerns, but I don't think there's any reason given his history to think that, violence would be anything as far as vengeance or anything like that, Your Honor. So, Judge, we are asking for a signature bond so he can go live with his sister, continue working. He says he makes about $400 a week, and he can help support and provide for those children.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Wilson, your bond is going to be set at a $5,000 signature bond through pretrial services. You would not need to pay for your bond, but you will be reporting to pretrial once a month, and you would need to comply with the following conditions in order to maintain your signature bond. First condition is no contact with Ms. Najee Saris. You are to stay 200 yards away from her. You're not to communicate with her at all, either in person or through a third party, through mail, email, phone, cell phone, computer, and even on social media. You are to have no contact with the 3 children that you share with Ms. Saris. However, you can file a separate legitimation action in the appropriate superior court and obtain a superior court order that can establish visitation and custody. Of course, Ms. Saris will also be able to attend the legitimation hearing and voice any of her concerns. While you are out on a signature bond through pretrial services, you are to stay away from 2805 Green Trail Drive in South Fulton. You may return to that location one time only with a police officer. That visit will only strictly be for you to retrieve your belongings. Within 30 days of being released from jail, you are to update the court with your current mailing address. If that's going to be your sister's address, then you need to update the court in writing of your current mailing address. You're not to consume any illegal drugs, no alcohol, and you cannot possess or own any weapons and any firearms. While you are out on a signature bond, you will also enroll in a domestic violence intervention program. That program must be enrolled within 60 days of being released. So by your second or third visit with pretrial, you must show proof with pretrial that you have enrolled in such a program. Thank you.
Number 9, Fields.
State versus Eddie Fields, accused of willful obstruction of a law enforcement officer, case number 24 CR 515A from January 26, 2024. Mr. Fields, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Mr. White. Any prize, Ms. Howard?
11 total. 2023 simple battery DV conviction. On probation, false imprisonment, ag battery, 22 SC 182873. And the 2017 trespass conviction.
Yes, Sean. In this case, law enforcement was dispatched at 1133 Womack Avenue due to some type of disagreement or minor altercation occurring between the defendant and the homeowner. When law enforcement arrived, the defendant was in the attic and refused to come down, and he was arrested for obstruction. The state is asking for a signature bond through the jail, a stay away from the incident location, no contact with the homeowner, whose name is Michael Wilson, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol while out on bond.
Mr. White, is going to be a $1,500 signature bond through the jail. Do you have any comment about the stay away or no contact? Any objection?
None at all, Judge.
All right. Bond is set at $1,500. It's a signature bond through the jail. Mr. Fields, this is now a new pending action against you. Please make sure that once you're released, you do come back to court when summoned. Maintain a current mailing address with us, and also to have no contact with Michael Wilson, and stay away from 1133 Womack Avenue. Don't give us a reason to have you arrested again, otherwise you will lose your signature bond. Thank you.
Position 12, Russell.
Righty, okay. State versus Dion Russell's case number is 24 CR 518Y, accused of terroristic threats and acts, misdemeanor charge from January 26, 2024. So Russell, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. Bray. Any priors, Mr.
No.
Howard? No? Okay.
Jail was the recommendation.
All right. And Mr. Walker?
Yes, law enforcement was dispatched at 2333 Daniel Road in Atlanta, where they spoke to the victim, Mr. Victor Gardner. He advised that he and his godbrother, who is the defendant, were engaged in a verbal disagreement. Things became heated. And according to the warrant, the defendant told Mr. Gardner, "I'll hurt you, I'll kill you, and I'll stab you." The state is asking for a signature bond through pretrial services, a 2-day anger awareness, no contact with the victim, Mr. Victor Gardner, a stay away from that instant location, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol while out on bond.
All right. I guess the state declined, the DA's office declined this as well?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Oh, just want to be sure. Thank you.
You're right.
Mr. Bray, I'm going to grant a signature bond. Any issues with the no contact and stay away?
So, Your Honor, I would ask for a signature bond through the jail. There is an issue. There's no issue with the no further contact. My client does not want any contact with Mr. Gardner either. However, that instant location, that is his mom and brother's address. the godbrother was living at that address. Mr. Russell does not know whether he is still there at that address or not. So he's fine with the stay away. And if Mr. Gardner is residing there, he will continue to stay away from that address. But if Mr. Gardner has moved out, he would ask for the opportunity to be able to see his mom, brother, and potentially reside there. But other than that, Your Honor, he's denying these allegations. This is his first arrest, and he's 29 years old. So we would ask for a signature bond through the jail.
Understood. So $1,500 signature bond through pretrial to have no contact with Victor. What was his name? Was it
Gardner.
Gardner? Okay, Victor Gardner. And to stay away from the location, 2333 Daniels Road in Southwest Atlanta. You may return to the location with a police officer once it is verified that Victor Gardner has permanently vacated the premises. But until then, you cannot return to that location. Of course, your family can come visit you, but you cannot go there. No alcohol, no drugs, no weapons and firearms. And your next court date will be sent to, well, I'm assuming he doesn't live at Daniel Road. So, well, since he has to vacate the premises, that's the address we have for him. Mr. Bray, does your client have a different address?
Judge, at this time, we do not have another address.
Okay.
I do have a good phone number for him. So our office.
Within 30 days of being released on this bond, he must update the court with a new mailing address since he cannot go back to the Daniel Road location unless Gardner vacates the premises.
Yes, Judge.
All right, thank you.
Position 14, Stan.
Are you Mr. Tan?
Yes.
Your case number is 24CR 520E, accused of theft by deception from December 18th of 2023. Mr. Tan, you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say in open court, your statements can and will be used against you. And your counsel is at the present time, Mr. Bray. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
Yeah, last arrest was 1998.
All right. Mr. Walker?
Yes, Your Honor. Law enforcement was dispatched to the Home Depot located at 5950 State Bridge Road. They were called there because the defendant is an employee or was an employee at this location. He was captured on camera processing returns for merchandise that he actually had not purchased or returned. It came to a total of $307.80. The state is asking for a signature bond through pretrial services to stay away from that instant location. No weapon, drugs, or alcohol while out on bond.
All right, thank you. Mr. Tan, your bond is a $2,000 signature bond through the jail. You are to stay away from all Home Depot stores, not just the one on State Bridge Road. No illegal drugs, no weapons and firearms. If you enter another Home Depot store and you're arrested, you could lose your signature bond. Your next court date will be sent to your current mailing address. Thank you.
Position number 2.
State versus Richard Braun. Mr. Braun is accused of simple assault and willful obstruction of an officer in case 24CR 508G. The incident date appears to be January 26, 2024. Mr. Braun, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. White. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
11 total. All you got is a bunch of theft, financial transaction card, and all that. I didn't see any violent arrests.
All
This
right,
was level 2.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Mr. Walker?
Yes, Your Honor. Law enforcement was dispatched to 290 Martin Luther King Boulevard. Due to the defendant being at that location, he is not a resident. I believe he's been asked to leave the property before. As he was being escorted off by Hector Rosado, he did strike Mr. Rosado, and then he resisted arrest and gave flight or attempted to give flight. The defendant did have multiple tools and unloaded handgun in his possession at the time of the arrest. The state is asking for a $2,500 surety bond, a stay away from the incident location, no contact with Hector Rosado, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol while on bond, and of course to surrender that firearm or any other firearms that he may have in his possession.
All right, and this was Hector Rosado, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Is there a Rosado on Zoom? No? Okay, Mr. White?
Judge, Mr. Braun was actually, this was the parking deck of the area, and they were filming a music video on the top of the deck. He was there watching it. Nobody had asked him to leave. And then as he was leaving, Mr. Rosado approached him. He was not in a uniform, he did not announce himself. So Mr. Braun was unsure of what was going on. We'd asked that he be allowed to sign his own bond. He has no violence in his past. He does have a job. He works for DoorDash and Grubhub, and he doesn't make a ton of money, but given the lack of history and what we think are extenuating circumstances, and the state said he struck, he's pushed away from him. Sort of like somebody's coming at you and you just kind of push and tried to run. It's not like he tried to lay the guy out. So we're asking to be allowed to sign his own bond.
Is this an apartment complex?
There is an apartment complex there. He was not at the complex. They were shooting a music video at the garage, the parking area.
Okay.
And he was observing and then left before they were done.
All right. On the simple assault and willful obstruction is going to be $1,000 each, and that's going to be a signature bond through the jail. That's a $2,000 signature bond through the jail. Mr. Braun, you cannot return to that location, 290 Martin Luther King Drive in Southeast Atlanta, and that will include the apartment complex and the parking deck. You can go anywhere else in Atlanta but that location.
Your Honor, the name of the apartment complex is Platform Grant Park.
Platform Grant Park, okay? Just stay away from the entire complex. And your next court date will be sent to your current mailing address. So do be sure that we have your current contact information at all times. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Position number 5, Kramer.
Richard D'Angelo Creamer is accused of stalking a misdemeanor offense from January 26, 2024. The case number is 24 CR 512C. Ms. Creamer, you've been advised of your right to remain silent. Your attorney is Mr. Bray. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
28 total. Got a 2020 ag assault, possession of a firearm or knife during the commission, aggravated stalking, on probation for that. 23 SC 187626. On probation for theft by taking. 20 SC 176182. 2018 and 2017 probation violations. That's it.
Mr. Walker?
Yes, Your Honor. Law enforcement was dispatched to 2130 Avalon Boulevard in Alpharetta, where they met with the victim, Ms. Christine Wilmot. She advised to law enforcement officers that she was in front of a medical spa. That is her place of employment, and she has looks like a protective order out on the defendant. That is case number 2022 CV 364792. And he was in front of that business knowing that that's her place of employment. So he was arrested on this charge. We are waiting back to hear from the DA's office for approval to transfer, as this is aggravated stalking. The state is asking for a $10,000 surety bond, a no contact with the victim, a stay away from her place of work, which is 2130 Avalon Boulevard. We have had contact with the victim. She advised that she is concerned for her safety. They used to date several months ago, but they no longer are dating, and she does not wish to have contact with the defendant. And her name is Christine Wilmot, in case she is on the line.
I do see a Ms. Wilmot. Ms. Wilmot, if you want to address the court, you wouldn't, okay? Did you want to address the court?
Ma'am.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
And what would you like to tell us?
I have a few corrections. The address is wrong. I don't work at Aya. I work at Oak Steakhouse, which is directly across the street. And I also work at Coletta. I'm the director of sales of both of those restaurants.
Is
which
this
is
the entire Avalon Shopping Center area?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what else would you like to address?
So he was standing directly across the street from my car, and he was already looking at me by the time I got to my car. And I was informed after police arrived that he works now across the street as of last month. I've been working there for almost a year now.
Do you have the case number for the protective order?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry, 2 seconds here.
Your Honor, I have it as 2022 CV 364792.
Looks
Yeah.
like- Okay, I just want to be sure. The one I pulled up says dismissed, so I wanted to be sure.
I'll let Ms. Wilmot confirm if she has an updated one.
It was amended. The renewal was done back in July, and it did not include my residence or my place of work. And I reached out to the court and let them know that, hey, this is missing off of there, so it was amended.
All right, so
And
the
then-
current bond, the current protective order extends up to July 10th, 2024. Okay. All right, Mr. Bray?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Creamer is 37 years old. He was born and raised here in Atlanta. He's got a residence, the 360 Far Road, that he can go back to. He's resided there for the last 2 years, Your Honor. There are 3 kids at the address that he helps take care of. He's also on child support, and he owes about $700 a month in child support. As the court heard, Mr. Creamer was employed at the time of his arrest. He tells me that he was transferred up to that True Foods location from the Buckhead location, and was unaware of where, of course, the alleged victim was working at the time. And it was by just pure coincidence that they ended up being in close location to each other within I believe the 200 yards that was specified in the protective order, the temporary protective order. So, Your Honor, he is still in communication with the manager of that of True Foods. He says he can be transferred back to the Buckhead location. So he's asking the court for a signature bond so he can get out, meet his child support obligations, and continue working.
Just 1 second, please. Right. The bond is going to be set at $5,000. It's going to be a signature bond for pretrial services. Mr. Creamer, you are to stay away from every business location at the Avalon Shopping Center. I don't know what's the total address, but if you are familiar with the True Foods restaurant facility there, you are to stay away from every business at Avalon. And also, according to the protective order that we've just indicated, you are to have no contact with Christine Wilmot. You're to stay 200 yards away from her and not communicate with her in any way, form, or manner. You report to pretrial once a month and maintain a current working address. Please keep in mind that the district attorney's office has the discretion to decide whether they want to upgrade this case from a misdemeanor stalking to an aggravated stalking, because this is an alleged violation of a current protective order. Thank
Your
you.
Honor, I don't understand your ruling, but I would ask that you consider a surety bond. He's already on a 5-year sentence for aggravated stalking, and that he took a plea to just last year. So
Understood,
considering this
but the
bond.
warrant only says that he was standing on the sidewalk facing the business. I don't see any indication that she was in the vicinity.
Well,
So
we just heard
that,
the victim testify that he was peering into her vehicle. So that's just the victim's testimony that we just heard that
which
he
is
was
within
looking
200 yards,
and he
standing
was
on the
peering.
sidewalk facing the business of Oak Steakhouse. Yeah. So if he goes back to any of the shops at the Avalon, or if he violates this contact order, well, that's an automatic aggravated stalking and a revocation of his bond. And since he's got 3 children and child support obligations, I'm sure his attorney will tell him to focus on the latter and make sure that he complies with the condition of the bonds. Otherwise, he'll be spending the rest of his days in jail, because please understand, Mr. Creamer, if you, since you've already on probation for aggravated stalking, an aggravation stalking charge, if that's the case, you could be brought back to jail and stay in jail for up to 3 months without a bond. So you decide whether you want to spend time with your kids or whether you want to spend time with your friends seated behind you. Thank you.
Position
Hey,
13.
what's the level of supervision for this?
Level 1, please. Next case, please. Ms. Wilmot, you're free to go.
Position 13.
This is Sammy Eugene Shade, accused of battery from December 14th, 2023, in case 24 CR 519D. Mr. Shade, you have a right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Mr. Brave. Any priors, please?
6 total. Last arrest was 2023. Battery DV. He got an open ag assault. 23 CP 216546. And the 2022 suspended license.
Yes, Your Honor. In this case, law enforcement was dispatched to 1455 Elba Drive, where they made contact with the victim, Mr. Charles Goins. He advised that he and his boyfriend both reside at that location. They were having a verbal disagreement that became physical. At the time, the defendant did strike the victim in his head. We are asking for a $5,000 surety bond, a stay away from the incident location, no contact with the victim, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol while out on bond.
Right. Yes, Mr. Jordan?
So this charge was amended to battery, family violence, first offense. I just saw
That is
that.
correct. I forgot to mention that we did amend the charge to battery family violence.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I was just looking at that as well. Okay.
And I just want to make clear that his open felony case is also with the same victim.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Thank you. Miss, is there a bond order in the felony case? I
It
didn't.
is, 1 second, I'm pulling it up. It is a $15,000 straight bond. No. Yeah, there's a stay away for the incident location. And it's a $15,000 straight bond. He was to have a one-time law enforcement escort.
All right.
No contact with the victim.
Mr. Charles Goins?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Mr. Bray?
Yes, Your Honor. I don't know where the incident location was in the felony case, but my client, Mr. Shade, tells me that he resides at the incident location here, that Mr. Goins is no longer in the area and has actually moved to Louisiana. So it's, hundreds of miles away from where Mr. Shade now lives. I also see in Odyssey, and I don't have any information on it, but I believe that Mr. Goins himself has an open battery family violence case where Mr. Shade is the alleged victim. So, Your Honor, this is a complicated, relationship dynamics, but I believe they have parted ways at this point. My understanding, again, is that Mr. Goins is gone, that Mr. Shade is left here. He's got a good job over at Crystal Clean off Purdue Drive. He's worked there for 3 years. He works 6 days a week. He handles hazardous materials there. He pays $550 in rent at the incident location. And so, Judge, we would ask for a signature bond through pretrial if the court wants to impose classes for Mr. Shade to do on that one day he has off. I'm sure he would do everything he can to meet those obligations. But again, I think this is a case where Mr. Goins is also a party that is charged with attacking Mr. Shade. So I think it's a
From
little more.
this case or?
No, that's completely incorrect. If you pull up that case, it was NOD. Your client was determined to be the primary aggressor, and that case is now a felony, and the incident location is the same as the felony offense.
Okay, I can't see. I see it in Odyssey. I just can't pull up any documents with it.
Okay, well, yes, the victim is not charged with battery family violence, and your client was determined to be the primary aggressor, and his case was, or still is, a felony.
Okay. Mr. Shade, I really don't care whether Mr. Goins doesn't live at Elva Street, but you have a bond order from February of last year that requires you to have no contact with Charles Goins. And I don't know what led to the encounter in December 14th, 2023. Please unmute Mr. Courtroom 2. Mr. Shade, you have a right to remain silent. Anything you choose to say can and will be used against you in the treatment of your case.
Yes, ma'am. Charles moved in August. You know, he moved to Meridian, Mississippi with his mother, and he wanted to work out the relationship. So that's how he ended up back December the 14th.
All right,
Mr. Shade, yeah, let's,
Oh,
you
I'm
know,
sorry.
you've got to
I'm
save this
sorry.
for another incident. Okay?
Okay.
Save this for your attorney.
Yes, sir.
If he decides he wants to work out the relationship, then you have to come back to court and get the no contact order amended. By you agreeing to work out with him, you have violated the Superior Court order. You can shake your head all you want, but you just admitted to it. If you want to unmute Courtroom 2, we'll be glad to hear him if he wants to argue with me.
I don't want to.
Mr. Shade, as your attorney, I would just advise you to remain silent and save this for another day, okay? You have an attorney for a reason.
So this new charge of battery, family, domestic violence is going to be a $3,500 surety bond. No contact, absolutely no contact with Charles Goins anytime until there is a court order that says you can have contact with him. You have to stay 200 yards away from him, not communicate with him in any way, form, or manner. If he comes and knocks on the door, you are required to shut that door. You are to stay away from 1450 Elva Drive in Southwest Atlanta. You can return to the location with a police officer. If it is verified that Charles Goins does not live there, you can return to the location. You're not to consume any illegal drugs, no alcohol, and not possess any weapons and any firearms. Your next court date will be December 8th.
Is that address 1455 or 14?
1450 Elva, ELVA Drive in Southwest Atlanta.
Thank you.
And just FYI, Mr. Shade, this is a second case for battery DV. The district attorney's office can have this case upgraded to a felony. Thank you.
I don't know what to do.
Position 6.
Okay, 6. This is State versus Marvin Dandridge, 24 CR 0000513Y. Stems from a January 26, 2024 incident in which Mr. Dandridge is now charged with battery, family violence. Mr. Dandridge, you've been advised of your right to remain silent. Your attorney is going to be Mr. Brave. And any priors, Mr. Howard? I'm sorry, Mr. Howard, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm just talking. 6 total. 2023 disorderly conduct. That's open. 23 CR 004 812Y. Got another open case, trespass and damage to property. 23 CR 003 410Y. 2023 fade to appear, and a 2022 burglary dismissed.
Thank you. Mr. Walker?
Yes, if I could just have 1 second, Your Honor. Okay, I'm sorry. In this case, law enforcement was dispatched to, hold on, my computer froze. Okay, here we go. Law enforcement was dispatched to 10740 West Side Way, where they met with the victim, Ms. Kiana Owens. She advised that her and the defendant were having an argument concerning childcare when things became violent. He did strike her in the head. The officer did notice visible swelling to the victim. It looks like they both reside at 281 Fielding Lane. So that will be the stay away address that the state is requesting. But back to his open case for criminal trespass, damage that's with the same victim. Looks like Judge Morrow gave him a $3,000 signature bond through the jail and to have no further violent contact with this victim. And here we are yet again. We are asking for a $3,000 surety bond, a stay away from their residence, 281 Fielding Lane. No contact with Miss Kiana Owens. No weapon, drugs, or alcohol while out on bond.
Mr. Bray?
Yes, Judge, I didn't know if Miss Owens was going to be on the line.
There doesn't seem to be anyone by that name on Zoom.
Yes, Judge. Mr. Danrich, he is 19 years old, Your Honor. He is enrolled in college at Atlanta Tech. He's doing IT for cybersecurity. He's in his 2nd year. So each day he's in jail, he's missing classes. He also works at Walmart. He's been there for 4 or 5 months. Of course, him and Miss Owens resided at this location, the 281 Fielding Lane. He pays $1,200 a month in rent. His son lives there as well. Judge, I know he's got a number of open misdemeanors, though I still think he's got, of course, no convictions at this point. I also think he tells me at least that he was on scene when officers arrived, so it's not like he was trying to flee the situation. So, Judge, we are asking for a signature bond through pretrial and to allow him to get out, keep attending school and classes, and keep working, so then he can support his child. So that's our request to the court.
Right. The bond is set at $3,500. It is a surety bond. No further contact with Kiana Owens. To have no contact means to stay 200 yards away from her and not communicate with her in any way, form, or manner. To stay away from 2815 Fielding Lane in Roswell, Georgia. And once you are released, you are required to update the court with your new address within 30 days of being released. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons. Yes, courtroom 2, please unmute.
So with the victim, Kiana Owen, that's my baby mother, and the reason why she's not on the call, because y'all have to ring her inside the call, but I had just got on the phone with her before I came to court, and she told us that she wanted to come on the call.
Well, I'm sure she can reach out to the victim advocate's office on her own. But from this point onwards, if you attempt to communicate with her through the phone from the jail, the Solicitor General's office will take note of that and move to revoke your bond. Because from this point onwards, you're not to communicate with her. You're not to call her, see her, or try to reach her through a third party. You're also required to stay away from the Fielding Lane location. And your next court date is going to be February 8th.
Okay. Thank you, Judge.
I would like to ask about Trayvon Calhoun. Leon Jones and Timothy Rutledge, they were not on the calendar, so.
Calhoun was NOD. Jones is supposed to be NOD.
Correct. I'm about to NOD in 2 seconds. And
And
Rutledge
what was the other name?
Rutledge, he's a bind over, so I don't think he needs the first appearance because he would have had a first appearance at municipal court, no?
That would be correct unless Mr. Bray or Mr. White have spoken to Mr. Rutledge.
Your Honor, I have spoken to Mr. Rutledge. He's currently got a $2,500 bond, but of course he's been unable to post that. So I would ask the court to address bond in his matter.
Do we have a CR number for his case?
No, we don't. And typically those, once they're accused, they go to the SAP calendar because they've already had a first appearance.
We will see him on February 8th at that time, hopefully with a new CR case at that time. That leaves me with David Watts, position 16. Deputy, is David Watts in the courtroom?
No, he was a medical reset again, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Watts has been a medical reset.
If he is who I think he is,
Yeah, this will be the
Pete
third
Cook
time.
wanted to talk to him on Monday. They've already talked to him a couple times. It looks like they're going to have to file a competency evaluation, but I believe Mr. Cook wanted to wait till Monday if it's the medical reset that we had yesterday.
So, Mr. Bray, this is position number 16. I don't know if that's assigned to you or Mr. White.
That was Mr. White's position, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. White, are you still on Zoom? Okay.
I believe it is. I'll double check.
Judge,
This is David Watts, charged with battery, and he was booked into the jail. He was accused on
Maybe not.
January 25th, which would be, what was it, Wednesday? No, Thursday maybe. Yeah, whatever.
I had no idea about Mr. Watts or any paperwork. So
Judge, I apologize. Yeah, the initial list that we got that we divvied up the clients by did not include Mr. Watts since he was a continuation from yesterday. And we didn't get the calendar until maybe 5 minutes before court
So
started.
he's been scheduled on the 25th, which was Thursday, then yesterday, Friday, and today, Saturday. So I'm just going to reset him to Monday. This is a continuing medical reset. And perhaps someone from the PD's office can have the social worker speak to him to see whether he needs to be evaluated. And if so, they can submit the appropriate order for evaluation.
Excuse me, Judge Law.
Yes.
Ms. Kasha Williams, she did speak to him on yesterday. He was a little chaotic. He was in and out. He was communicating with her at first and then he just shut down. And plus he was also in quarantine.
Okay. So
Right.
I'm just putting the PD's office on alert that we'll definitely re-see him on, his case is going to be on the calendar again at 2 p.m. on Monday. But if y'all want to move this case forward, it needs to be either addressed or waive his appearance or submit an evaluation.
PD Cook is aware. He's been working on it. And he said if nothing is made by Monday, he will file the competency evaluation.
All
So
right.
he's been working
So
on it for a
Mr.
couple
Cook
days.
will take care of that. All right. Thank you, Deputy. I'm just going to go over the calendar then for the bonds. Position number 1 is I forgot. I didn't write it down. I think that was a signature bond, was it?
I got 500 good.
500 good. See, I didn't write that down. I'm so sorry. So that's a $500 good bond, February 8th. Position 2 is a $2,000 signature bond through pretrial.
Jail, Judge.
Jail? Okay. Sorry, guys. I just wrote on the numbers, so. Position 3 was a $2,000 surety bond, reset date February 8th. Position 4 is a 2,500 signature bond through pretrial. For Mr. Cade's case for the criminal trespass. And then the add-on case on the theft by receiving, that's a 4,500 surety bond, reset date February 8th. So I guess both cases can go to February 8th. Mr. Jordan? Okay. Position 5 Creamer is a $5,000 signature bond through pretrial. Position 6 is a 3,500 surety bond, reset date February 8th. 7, 500 surety, reset February 8th. Position 8, Evans, is a $3,000 signature bond through the jail to whichever hold is currently pending. Whoever takes him first, they get him. Position 9, Fields, is a $1,500 signature bond through pretrial. 10, Lewis, is a 3,500 split bond, reset date February 8th. Yeah,
Was Fields
I had a-
jail?
Fields is a for
I
the
had jail.
driving without a valid license is 500 surety.
Fields is obstruction, number
Position
9.
9.
Oh,
You already
I'm
said
sorry.
that.
Did I jump to Lewis?
No,
Fields number
you were
9
saying
is a
sign up
15. Fields is 1,500 signature bond through pretrial.
That's through the jail.
You said jail.
Oh, is it jail? Okay, sorry.
Yes.
Okay. And then Lewis is a 3,500 split bond. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm
And
sorry,
then-
15, it's 100. I think it's a 1,500 split.
I got 1,500 pretrial, 1,000 good. I don't know.
So
I got
count one was
500 good on-
530.
Okay,
and
let me
the-
clarify. Miss Kylie Lewis on the driving without a valid license is a $500 surety. The speeding, no insurance, and giving false information are each $1,000 signature bond through pretrial.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay, so it's a 3,500 split bond, reset date February 8th, no driving. Position 11, Richardson, is a $4,000 signature bond through pretrial. Position 12, Russell, 1,500 signature bond through pretrial. 13, Shade, is a 3,500 surety bond, reset date February 8th. Okay. And the charge in position 13 is now a battery domestic violence charge. Okay. Position 14, Mr. Tan, is a $2,000 signature bond through the jail. Stay away from all Home Depot stores. 15, Thompson, is a 5,000 signature bond through pretrial level 2. Position 16, David Watts, is reset to Monday, and that would be 29th at 2 p.m. 17, Wilson, is a 5,000 signature bond through pretrial. And that concludes the calendar. All right, folks, y'all have a good Saturday. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Mr. Jordan, I'll just wait for your email, okay? Yes?
Okay, Judge. I was
Take
trying
your
to find
time.
the
It's
button.
entirely up to you. Okay.